Pierre Bouchard, a young Parisian millionaire, lives a life of luxury, always surrounded by beautiful women, exclusive parties, and profitable businesses. His confidence and coldness in business made him an icon in the business world, but his personal life was superficial. One day, during an informal meeting at one of the most expensive restaurants in Paris, he is challenged by a friend to something unusual: to marry an obese woman in less than a week. "You think you're capable of anything, don't you, Pierre?" said Jean, laughing and provoking. "How about proving that you can find and marry a woman, let's say, outside of your standards?" Pierre, laughing, accepts the bet, not giving it much importance. The next day, Pierre meets Clara, a young woman confident and with a kind heart. She is quite different from the women Pierre is used to dating. Clara does not fit the beauty standards he usually values, but her intelligence and strong personality intrigue him. As the days pass, Pierre begins to get closer to Clara. With the initial intention of fulfilling his challenge, he invites her to dinner at an elegant restaurant in Montmartre, where he tries to seduce her with his typical arrogance and superficial charm. "So, Clara," Pierre begins with a confident smile, "have you ever imagined what it would be like to be with a man of my level?" Clara, without hesitation, replies, "I imagine it would be quite boring. Men who only see the exterior are usually empty inside." Surprised by her response, Pierre realizes that Clara is not intimidated by his wealth or status. Throughout the dinner, she shares her perspective on life, the importance of being true to oneself, and rejecting stereotypes. Clara is an art teacher, passionate about what she does, and her joy for life begins to challenge Pierre's superficial beliefs. Even so, Pierre sticks to the plan. He invites her for a boat ride on the Seine River at sunset, trying to impress her. However, instead of being dazzled by the luxuries, Clara questions him about his true interests and desires. "Money doesn't buy everything, Pierre," she says, looking him in the eyes. "What are you seeking beyond that?" For the first time in a long while, Pierre is left speechless. He begins to realize that the challenge was not as simple as he thought. Clara, unaware of the challenge, awakens something deeper in him, and he finds himself torn between the bet and the feelings that are beginning to emerge. On the fourth day after the start of the bet, Pierre feels a profound change in his behavior. Clara effortlessly brings out a side of him he didn't know existed. During a more intimate encounter, walking through the Luxembourg Gardens, he finally decides to open up and share a bit of his story, something he rarely does. "You know, Clara, I wasn't always this guy, this Pierre, you know," he begins, looking off into the horizon. "When I was young, all I wanted was to be respected. I grew up in a modest neighborhood, and wealth seemed like the only way to achieve that." Clara listens attentively, and for the first time, Pierre feels like someone sees him beyond appearances. "And did you get the respect you wanted?" she asks, her voice soft but penetrating. Pierre hesitates. He had never really thought about it that way. "I don't know. I think the respect I have is superficial, just like everything I've built." At that moment, Pierre realizes the impact Clara has had on his life. The bet begins to seem insignificant in the face of the genuine feelings he is developing, but the weight of the challenge haunts him, especially with Jean, his friend, pressing him for results. The next evening, during a dinner with Jean and other friends, Pierre is confronted. "So, Pierre, have you set the wedding date with your future wife?" Jean asks, laughing, teasing him in front of everyone. Pierre, now much more serious, feels his heart tighten. He realizes that if he continues with the bet, not only will he hurt Clara, but he will also destroy the only chance he has had to experience something real and meaningful. "I think the bet doesn't matter anymore," he says, looking directly at Jean. "Clara is different. I can't do this to her." The room falls silent. Jean smiles cynically but realizes that Pierre has changed. What started as a joke has turned into something much more complex. Pierre, for the first time in years, feels like he's facing a true dilemma. He realizes that the person he was before meeting Clara is no longer who he wants to be. Sitting in his luxurious penthouse overlooking the Eiffel Tower, he reflects on how his life has been led until now. The business, the money, the parties, all seem empty in the face of the authenticity and simplicity that Clara brings. He decides to find her. Clara is in her art studio painting, surrounded by vibrant colors and soft light. When Pierre enters, she greets him with a smile. But something in the air is different. He can no longer hide the truth, and he feels the need to confess. "Clara, I need to tell you something, and it's very difficult for me, but you deserve to know," Pierre begins, his voice tense. "I met you because of a bet. It was a silly, stupid challenge that I accepted to prove to myself and others that I could win over any woman, including you." Clara remains silent. She lets the brush fall slowly, her eyes fixed on his, trying to process what she just heard. "So it was all a joke to you?" she asks, her voice trembling. "All those conversations, the outings, was all of that part of a bet?" Pierre, desperate to fix things, steps closer to her. "At first, yes, but something changed. I changed. Clara, I never thought someone like you could show me what really matters in life. It's not the bet that brought me here now. It's how I feel about you. I can't keep up this lie anymore." Clara, visibly shaken, steps back, trying to organize her thoughts. "I trusted you, Pierre. I thought we were being honest with each other." She turns her back, walking to the window, her heart heavy. Pierre stands still, the weight of guilt crushing him. "If I had the courage, I would have never accepted that bet, Clara. But now all I want is to prove that I'm not that man anymore. I truly love you," he says, his voice breaking. For a long moment, there is only silence between them. Clara, still hurt, struggles to believe what he's saying. She finally turns, tears in her eyes. "I need time, Pierre, to figure out what's real and what isn't, because I am not a bet. I never was." Pierre respects her request, knowing that now the decision is in her hands. The days pass slowly for Pierre as he waits for any sign from Clara. He tries to focus on work, but his heart and mind are completely consumed by the emptiness she left behind. His life of luxury, which once seemed so important, now turns into a bitter memory. Pierre realizes that everything he built over the years no longer has value without someone to share something genuine with. Meanwhile, Clara reflects on everything that happened. In her studio, she throws herself into her art, trying to process the pain and confusion she feels. She never expected that Pierre could fall in love with her, and even less that their relationship would start with such a cruel lie. However, Clara cannot ignore the changes she saw in him, the sincerity in the moments they shared. But could she trust him again? A few days later, Clara decides to seek him out. She finds Pierre at the same restaurant where everything began. He is sitting alone with a distant look, lost in thought. When she approaches, Pierre looks up, and his eyes shine with surprise and hope. "Clara," he whispers, almost unable to believe she is there. She sits across from him, her expression still serious but with an air of resolution. "I've thought a lot, Pierre," she begins, her voice calm but firm, "about everything that happened. And even though I'm still hurt, I can't ignore that there was something real between us. But you need to understand that trust is something hard to regain." Pierre takes a deep breath, placing his hands on the table. "Clara, I know what I did is unforgivable. I let my ego, my vanity take over. But what I feel for you is the most real thing I've ever experienced. I'm not that man who lives for appearances anymore. If you give me a chance, I want to prove that I can be someone worth being by your side." Clara looks at him for a long moment before saying, "I don't want to be a prize, Pierre. I'm not someone you win in a bet or a conquest. If we're going to be together, it will be because you see me for who I am without games." Pierre, emotional, lightly squeezes her hands. "I understand, Clara, I see you. I've always seen you even when I didn't want to admit it." Clara takes a deep breath and gently releases his hands. "Then let's see how things unfold, no rush. Time will tell if your words are sincere." They exchange a soft smile, and for the first time in a long while, Pierre feels genuine hope in his heart. Clara didn't promise anything, but she opened a door, and that was all he needed at that moment. The following months are a test of patience and growth for Pierre. He commits to proving to Clara that his words were not just empty promises. Slowly they begin spending more time together, this time without excessive luxuries or the need to impress. Their meetings are simple strolling through the old neighborhoods of Paris, afternoons in Clara's studio, where Pierre quietly watches as she paints. For the first time, he feels like he doesn't need to be anyone other than himself. One day, while walking through Parc Monceau, Pierre finally realizes that his transformation is complete. He had freed himself from the chains of superficiality, and by Clara's side, he found something he never thought was possible: peace. "You know, Clara," he begins, stopping and looking at her with sincerity in his eyes, "I never imagined I could feel so happy just being me. Thank you for showing me what really matters." Clara smiles softly, observing the new man Pierre had become. "You did all the work yourself, Pierre. I just showed you there was more to you than you could see." They sit on a bench under the trees, and in the comfortable silence, Pierre feels that he has gained something far greater than money or power. He had earned the right to be loved for who he truly is. That afternoon, without fanfare, Pierre takes a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a simple yet meaningful ring. "Clara," he says, full of emotion, "I'm not asking you because of a bet anymore. I'm asking because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. No rush, no games, just the two of us." Clara looks at the ring, her eyes welling up with emotion. She smiles, taking his hand. "I accept, Pierre. Not for the ring, but because I also want to share my life with you." And there, without the bright city lights or the luxuries Pierre once prized so highly, he finds the greatest achievement of his life: true love. Months after the engagement, Pierre and Clara marry in a simple ceremony held in the countryside, surrounded only by their closest friends and family. Far from the media's flashes or the luxuries of Paris, the celebration reflects Pierre's journey of transformation and the authentic love he and Clara have built. After the wedding, Pierre makes an unexpected decision. He begins to step away from the business world. Now his priority is to live a simpler life by Clara's side. Together, they create a foundation to help young artists, offering opportunities to talents who, like Clara, struggle to be recognized in a world that values appearance over substance. At one of the foundation's events, Pierre is approached by Jean, the old friend who challenged him that fateful night. Jean, who once mocked Pierre's choices, now looks at him with admiration. "I never thought you would change so much, Pierre," Jean says, shaking his hand. "It seems you've gained more than any bet could have ever given you." Pierre smiles with Clara by his side. The real victory, Jean, was discovering what truly matters, and that no amount of money can buy. As the event continues, Pierre and Clara look around the gallery filled with works by young artists, many of whom wouldn't have had this chance without their help. They share a knowing glance, full of love, understanding that together they found something far greater than luxury or appearances. Finally, Pierre understands that his greatest achievement wasn't his business success, but the love and life he built with Clara. This story shows us that the most valuable achievements are not linked to money, but to the choices we make and the love we find along the way. Pierre, who began his journey seeking validation in wealth and status, discovered that true wealth lies in authentic connections and the simplicity of loving and being loved for who we really are. This story is an invitation for us to reflect. What really matters to us? Are we seeking achievements that fulfill us, or are we trapped in a superficial pursuit? Share your thoughts about this journey of love and transformation in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and Pierre and Clara's journey, don't forget to like, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel Inspired Stories. We have many more exciting and inspiring stories to tell, and we want you to be part of this journey with us. Thank you for watching until this moment. We'll see you in the next video. Until then.